Hey guys, welcome to the networking course. Woo! So we're gonna talk about sockets today. Sockets, amazing. So what's a socket? Well, let's say we have an app. So let's say app one. An app wants to communicate with app two. What a conundrum. So what these two apps can do is that they can open up a socket on the PC. So they both open up a socket, and then through these sockets, they can communicate with each other. So that's the base level purpose of what a socket is. Now, sockets aren't language specific, so they aren't specific to C++ or C# or Python. It's an OS specific feature. So it's a way for a programming language to communicate with an operating system. And on the operating system level, it will open up a socket, and then we can use that socket in the programming language. So this knowledge that we will learn today, or through this course rather, won't be specific to C++ or anything really. If you're using C# or Python or Ruby or something, you'll still be using sockets. It's still the same thing. That might have some programming language layer on top of that maybe. But in the end, down the stream, it will all be using sockets, and it actually isn't even a Windows-specific thing. Most major operating systems that I know of, at least, have agreed to use this sort of design paradigm to communicate within apps. So if you, for some reason, are using Linux or something, you'll still be using sockets, and even the function calls will be very similar because all the operating systems have sort of agreed on a standard that comes from the Unix days. So that's great. But of course, we don't want to talk about two applications on the same system. We want to talk through the internet, the scary box of internet. So scary. So through sockets, we're going to be able to go through the internet, through all wires and dingle-dangs and all the different things that happen in there, who knows, and then come out the other side and talk to another socket on another system. App 2 will have themselves open up a socket. And once this happens, then we can communicate between these two apps over the internet. Fantastic. So that's a basic level rundown of what a socket will do for us. How nice. So we're going to open up Visual Studio and actually create one of these bad boys. So I'm just going to create a new project. I'm going to do empty project, C++. And then I'll place it here. And then do networking lesson. Doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it anyway. Call it anything. Might have seen in my recents. This is in fact not my first take. So do some behind the scenes trivia for you guys. So I'll make a C++ file. I don't know why I keep putting G's at the end of everything. Okay. So I'll just do the basic rundown, just the basic stdio, int main, just to make sure everything's up and running. Printf, hello world. There we go. Let's run that. And well, we had it up for like a second, but I want to actually see it. So I'm actually gonna do. I think I found this today actually. So you could do start without debugging here. Control F5 for me. And then I will actually insert this system pause here for us, so we can actually see our work being done here. So hello world, press any key and it goes down when I press any key. Very nice. So we're gonna use the Windows library for creating sockets, and that's called WinSock2. So that's their new improved version. I don't know when that was made actually. Should have looked that up. yeah, so we're gonna use WinSock 2, but again, this is just a C++ specific library. If you're using Python, it's gonna be called something else. It's not gonna use WinSock. WinSock is just their C++ implementation here to open up sockets on the operating system. So for WinSock, we're gonna call VSA startup. That's gonna be the way to initialize their library. I don't know what A stands for. It's WinSock and okay. So it takes two parameters. It takes a version and it takes a pointer to a VSA data struct. That LP stands for low pointer. So it's gonna take a version and a pointer to a VSA data struct. So first we're gonna construct a version. It's a word, and they want, you know, the upper byte to be the high version and then the lower byte to be the low version. I don't know what you would call that, but they have a nice macro for us to construct one of these words. I'll use the 2. So we're gonna use version 2.2. And then we're gonna make one of these VSA data structs. VSA data. We're not actually gonna be using this struct, so we'll just provide one because it needs one. There we go. So make a VSA data struct in all caps because, you know, we like to scream, and then I'll just provide a pointer to that data struct. Cool. And then let's run it. Oh no! Unresolved is gonna symbol. Panic! So we have a linker error, unresolved external. I'm sorry, I just woke up. So we have an unresolved external symbol, high professionalism here. And this is a linker error, which means we need to link with this library. It's not linked by default. Luckily, it's provided by the operating system, this WinSock 2 library. We don't need to download anything. We just need to go into our properties and link our project with that library. So I'll go into linker, input, and then in this huge list, I'll just do the arrow, edit, and then in the additional dependencies, I'll just add vs2_32.lib. And this is already on your computer, hopefully. We don't need to download anything. We used to we just need to link with it. And now if I run, there we go, I forgot to do Control F5. Hello world, we have successfully started up WinSock 2. Yes. Excuse me. Okay, so now we want to create a socket. Okay, so that was the purpose here. So now we started up the WinSock 2 library. Now we want to create a Dang socket. So socket, in all caps, is the handle that we're going to be using. So if we actually go to this, it's type def as a U in. I don't know if this type def is actually used. There was two of them. Oh, it's the same one. Okay, yeah, here. So it's type def as a uint pointer, and if we go to that type def, it's actually just an unsigned int. Excuse me. So sockets in WinSock aren't actually pointers. They're just essentially an integer. It's what we call a handle. Since sockets are actually sort of a kernel object, it's, you know, living down deep below the bowels of Windows. We don't get access to the actual socket itself. We just get a handle to the socket. If you ever worked with something like OpenGL, it shouldn't be all that confusing. We just get sort of a reference in the form of an integer to the socket. So when we're calling functions like, you know, connect or bind or send or anything, we just provide the handle, and then down below in the operating system, if we use that handle to actually, you know, get the object and, you know, do whatever needs to be done. So that's what we're working with on our high-level application. So I am gonna create a socket, and that's done with the socket function. Socket will create for us a nice new socket, and takes 3 parameters. So the thing is that sockets are used for a lot of things. It's not just, you know, one thing that they're used for. They're used for a lot of things. We have to specify which type of socket do we want to create. And we want to create a socket that communicates through TCP over the internet. So now we're not going to talk too much about what TCP means, what's the TCP protocol. We're going to get into that a bit later. So you sort of take my word right now what inputs we're going to input here. For AF, that's address family. So we're just going to type in AF INET here, which stands for address family internet. And if we actually go there, we'll see that, you know, there are a lot of ways to use the sockets. There's a billion of them. So, you know, sockets are not by any means used just for internet access. It's used for a lot of things. Here's IPX, for example, which doesn't exist anymore. As far as I know, here's unknown one. Somebody's using this. So, you know, they're used for a lot of things. So we're not going to look at that. Just close it down. Forget we saw anything. You know, try to sleep tonight. We're just going to use it for internet. And then type. So this is kind of strange. Type and protocol are actually quite linked. So we're gonna do sock stream, and for protocol we're gonna do IP proto TCP. So we're not gonna worry about these two too much right now. You just know that at some point we're gonna talk about what this means. What does sock stream mean? What does IP proto TCP mean? Just take my word for it for now. So hopefully now we should have made a socket in the operating system. So let's just check that. So if sock is equal to invalid socket, that means something went wrong. And for some reason we couldn't create a socket. So we're just gonna print like, oh no, socket failed. Oh no. I'm gonna return one. There we go. So let's run this bad boy and see what happens. Hello world! Okay, so we didn't fail. Of course, if I do some weird here, where I input some random number for the type, then, you know, socket will fail because it couldn't find a socket type of 5245, whatever that it's supposed to be. So as long as we provided logical parameters, then we should have made a brand new socket for ourselves. Very nice. But of course, he's making a socket on itself isn't very interesting. Sockets are made to communicate with other sockets, and that's what we're gonna look at in the next lesson. So stay tuned.